The call from the seventh floor. Tian'an General Hospital used to be the pride of a small coastal city. A seven-story weathered building from the 1980s, it stood tall, surrounded by rows of flame trees that shed their red leaves every summer. After 2015, the hospital abruptly shut down without explanation. Rumors spread quickly. Unexplained deaths, missing patients, nurses who suddenly quit without a word. Since then, Tian'an became a haunted ruin. Yellow streetlights barely lit its moldy, flaking walls. Though sealed off, thrill seekers and the curious kept sneaking in, only to leave in silence, if they ever left at all. In October 2023, Min, a senior journalism student, decided to base his thesis on abandoned buildings and the stories behind them. To impress his supervisor, he chose Tian'an as his focus. Despite warnings from his friends, Min went alone. He prepared thoroughly: a voice recorder, flashlight, extra batteries, an infrared camera, snacks, rope, and a small knife. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in uncovering the truth, and if this hospital had buried secrets, he'd be the one to expose them. That night, drizzle misted the air. Min climbed over a rusted fence and followed a weed-covered path to the main building. Dead leaves crunched beneath his shoes, mixed with the rhythmic drip of rain leaking through broken gutters. The front entrance was bolted shut, but the side door wasn't. The metal creaked loudly as he pushed it open. Inside stretched a long, pitch-black hallway. The musty, damp smell clung to the air. Min's flashlight beam scanned the walls, revealing peeling paint and a faded directory still clinging to the wall. Each floor listed treatment wards, except the seventh floor, the intensive care unit, which had been crossed out in red marker with no explanation. Min began filming and narrating his notes into the recorder. The air was thick, unnaturally cold for late summer. His footsteps echoed, as if someone walked behind him. But every time he turned around, nothing. Just his own shadow against the wall. He passed through rooms on the ground floor, rusted bed frames, empty medicine cabinets. Some rooms had shattered glass and dried brown stains, blood maybe, on the floors. His infrared camera suddenly buzzed, faintly. Not wind, for the windows were sealed. Still, Min pressed on. He climbed floor by floor, documenting each one. Floors 2 through 5 were alike, grim, empty, and steeped in that cloying chemical scent of old disinfectant. The 6th floor was darker. As he stepped in, his flashlight flickered, then died. He switched to a backup battery. But the camera showed no signal. The voice recorder crackled with static. From the end of the hall, Min heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, scraping as if dragging something heavy. He called out, "Who's there?" No response, but the footsteps stopped. Then a girl's whisper, soft and broken, "I'm so cold, help me." Min froze. The voice came from directly behind him. He spun around. No one, but just beyond a doorframe, something peeking. A pale face, eyes black voids, hollow and watching. He bolted, headed for the stairs, but they were gone. The staircase he had just climbed had vanished. A wall stood in its place. Panic set in. Min ran back into the hallway. His flashlight blinked back on. Ahead, a single hospital bed sat alone in the corridor. On it lay a girl in a white patient gown, turned away, hair long and limp, trailing to the floor. Beside the bed, a yellowed photograph showed a deformed little girl smiling in a hospital room. Min crept closer. Suddenly, the girl sat up. Her eyes were empty sockets, her mouth split impossibly wide, stretching ear to ear. Then she screamed, an unearthly, piercing wail that shattered the recorder in Min's pocket. In English, "The Call from the 7th Floor, Part 2. Min dropped to the ground, clutching his ears, disoriented by the inhuman shriek. The scream had not only broken the recorder, it felt like it had torn through his skull. When he looked up, the hallway was empty again. The bed, the girl, the photo, gone. Only the silence remained, thick and wrong. Shaking, Min tried to find his bearings. His phone had no signal. The hallway lights, long dead, flickered for a moment, just enough for Min to glimpse a silhouette at the very end, standing still, watching. The flashlight beam trembled in his hand as he pointed it toward the figure, but there was nothing there anymore. He ran. Door after door, locked, until one opened with a rusty groan, a patient room. Inside was a rusted sink, a smashed mirror, and a wheelchair turned away from the door. Something inside him said, "Don't," but he stepped in anyway. The smell was stronger here, rotting cloth, dried blood, mold. The walls were scratched with fingernail marks. And then Min saw it. On the back of the door, written in something dark, maybe ink, maybe not, was a single word: stay! The wheelchair creaked. Min froze. The chair turned. There was nothing sitting in it, but the air turned freezing cold. His breath misted. He turned to leave, and the door slammed shut behind him. Locked. Panic clawed at his throat as he rattled the doorknob. No use. Then, behind him, the mirror began to clear. The dust and cracks faded like time reversing, and in its reflection, the room changed. It wasn't the decayed ruin anymore. It was clean, lit, modern. But Min wasn't in the reflection. Standing in his place was a girl in a white hospital gown. Her face was stitched shut. Her eyes were sewn closed. She tilted her head, raised a finger, and pressed it to her lips. Shh! Then, in the real room, Min heard it again. The dragging footsteps. Coming closer. The mirror flickered. Behind the girl, something enormous was crawling through the ceiling vent. Something thin and long and twisted, with limbs that bent the wrong way. It had no face, just a round, skinless head and twitching fingers that clawed through the duct like a spider. The girl turned toward it, then back toward Min. Blood began to soak her gown. From her stitched mouth, something wreathed under the skin. The light burst, the mirror shattered. Min was thrown back, hitting the wall hard. When he came to, the door was open, and the hallway had changed. Gone were the familiar corridors. In their place was a hallway made entirely of patient doors. Hundreds of them, all identical, stretching out into darkness. On each door, a nameplate. He stepped closer. Room 709. His blood ran cold. He stepped back. Another door. Levy James. Another. Do not. Open. He turned to leave, but the hallway behind him was gone. He was inside the maze. He ran past door after door, all of them whispering. Some doors cried, some laughed, some banged from the inside like someone or something desperately wanted out. Then, from somewhere far ahead, he heard a lullaby. Faint, off tune, sung by a child. Go to sleep, go to sleep. Don't let them in, don't make a peep. It was coming from room 709. His room. He stepped closer. The doorknob twisted on its own and opened. Inside was a hospital bed, with Min lying in it. Wires and IVs connected him to machines. His skin was pale, lips bluish, eyes closed, face lifeless. On the monitor, his vitals were flat. He was dead? Before Min could react, someone behind him whispered, "You've been here all along." He spun around. The stitched girl stood there. Only now the stitches were gone. Her mouth opened, impossibly wide. Her eyes bled black, and she smiled. Min stumbled backward into the room, away from the girl's bleeding eyes and nightmare smile. But she didn't move. She only pointed to the figure lying in the bed. To him. And then the body in the bed opened its eyes. But they weren't Min's. They were blank, empty, as if filled with something that had worn him like skin. The monitors came to life, beeping erratically. A siren blared in the distance. No, not outside. From inside Min's head. The walls pulsed like lungs. Blood seeped from the ceiling. The girl vanished in the blink of an eye. Min fled, out into the maze of doors again. But now, some doors were open, and what was inside them wasn't human anymore. Room 713 was ajar. Something inside breathed heavily, loud and wet, like an animal too large for its cage. A hand with too many fingers gripped the edge of the door. Min didn't look twice. He ran, and suddenly, he was back, at the staircase. The 6th floor. The door to the 7th floor stood open. It hadn't been before. A broken sign above read, "Intensive care, restricted." Min didn't want to go up, but something pulled at him, something he didn't understand. He climbed. Each step felt heavier, the air thicker. As he reached the landing, the walls changed. Photographs lined the hallway, grainy, black and white images. Children in hospital gowns, some smiling, some blurred, as if they had moved during the shot, but their expressions looked wrong, like they weren't really children at all. One photo was different. Min stopped. It was a little girl standing alone in front of a room marked 707. Her face was stitched shut. Her eyes were his. Min turned toward room 707. The door was half open. And inside was a room that shouldn't exist. A surgical chamber, dimly lit by a single lamp swaying above an operating table. On it lay surgical tools, bloody, old. Hooks, bone saws, and a black recorder still running. A voice echoed from the recorder, raspy and male. Subject 7, female, 8 years old. Severe behavioral instability. Failed sedation. Operation begins at 2:33. A child's scream followed, cut off by static. Then another voice, feminine, calm, clinical. She wouldn't stop screaming, so we took her mouth. Min's stomach turned. The air grew colder. In the far corner of the room, a shape slowly rose. A girl. The girl, her mouth unstitched, her eyes locked on his. But this time, she didn't scream. She whispered. They did it to all of us. The walls around her bled names. Hundreds, scrawled in red, Min's name among them. Then the operating light went out. Darkness. A heartbeat, not his. Then a whisper, not hers. You shouldn't have come. Min's legs trembled as he backed toward the door. But the operating room was gone. No walls. No ceiling. Only endless beds stretching into the dark, each one occupied. Each one hooked to lifeless monitors. IV bags dripping something black. The smell of metal and rot was unbearable. He staggered forward, searching for an exit, but the beds never ended. Every few steps, the bodies moved, twitching, jerking. Some had their mouths sewn shut. Others had empty sockets where eyes should be. Some had no faces at all. Then he saw her again, the girl, standing between the beds in a white gown now soaked crimson. She looked up at him. This time, she was crying. They kept us here, she said. Experiments. We were nothing but trials to them. When we screamed, they called us mad. When we died, they called it failure. Min shook his head. This can't be real. This is a dream, a trick. She stepped closer. It was real for us. Suddenly, he was no longer in the endless room. He was in an office. Clean, lit, clinical. Doctors in white coats spoke calmly over coffee. Paperwork was passed between hands. One man, tall with sunken eyes, signed a form titled Subject 707 Non-Responsive. Proceed with cranial breach. Min's voice broke the illusion. You knew. You all knew. But no one heard him. Then a whisper in his ear. Close, wet breathing. Now you know too. Darkness again. Min opened his eyes, and he was back in room 709. His name on the chart, his body in the bed, and the machine was beeping again. This time, slowly, steadily. A voice behind him spoke with horrible calm. You've been in a coma for 3 years, Min. Do you remember what happened? He turned. It was a woman in a lab coat, face blurry, like static. Her voice was too smooth, like it didn't belong to a real person. He looked down at his arms. IV lines, monitors, his own body, too thin, too pale. Was this the truth? Had he really been here all this time? You went into that hospital, the woman continued, and never came out, until now. She smiled. But the 7th floor never forgets its guests. Suddenly, she began to flicker. Behind her, the stitched girl stood again, bloody, broken. And then the entire room dissolved into red. Walls collapsed. Alarms blared. The beds burst into flame. The girl screamed, not in pain but rage. And Min screamed with her. He tried to run, but there was no floor, just a void. Voices, hundreds called his name from the dark. Min, stay with us, stay. And then, light, real light. Min sat bolt upright, gasping for air, in a hospital bed. A different hospital. Modern, clean. Morning sun streamed through the blinds. A nurse dropped her clipboard, startled. Oh my God, he's awake! Doctors rushed in. Machines beeped wildly. Someone shouted, call his family, he's responding. Min looked around, tears in his eyes. He was free. But as they hugged him, checked his vitals, spoke of recovery, Min looked toward the window, and there she was, standing across the street, the girl, white gown, pale skin, black eyes, watching, waiting. She raised a hand and drew a finger across her lips. Shh! Then vanished into the fog. The end.